I was tearing down a rotting wall in my $50,000 cheap house when my sledgehammer hit hollow metal. Behind the drywall was a hidden vault full of gold bars and a note saying, "Don't trust the sheriff." When I signed the closing papers on that old two-story property on the edge of Oak Ridge, everyone thought I was out of my mind. The porch was sagging, the roof was leaking like a sieve, and the local real estate agent practically shoved the keys into my hands with a nervous laugh before driving away as fast as he could. At $50,000, it was the only property in the whole county I could afford on my modest savings. I knew it needed work, a lot of work, but I was ready to roll up my sleeves and breathe new life into the place. The first week was all about clearing out decades of dust, old moldy furniture, and cobwebs that hung like drapes in every corner. The house had been vacant since the late 1950s, swallowed up by time and forgotten by the township. It was on a humid Tuesday morning when I finally turned my attention to the master bedroom on the second floor. The wallpaper was peeling, revealing water-damaged drywall underneath that smelled heavily of damp earth and old pine. I grabbed my 16-pound sledgehammer, took a deep breath, and swung it right into the center of the northern wall. I was expecting the dry crunch of rotten plaster and wood studs, but instead, a deep, heavy, metallic chime echoed through the empty hallway. My arms vibrated from the impact. I swung again, harder this time, chipping away chunks of gray plaster until a cold, rusted piece of solid steel caught the beam of my flashlight. I spent the next 3 hours carefully peeling back the remaining wall frame, my heart hammering against my ribs with every piece of debris I pulled away. What stood before me wasn't a chimney or a ventilation duct. It was a heavy cast-iron vault door built right into the original brick foundation of the house. The lock was ancient, a brass dial caked in decades of grime. With a bit of rust remover and a heavy pry bar, I managed to force the mechanical latch to yield. The heavy door groaned on its hinges, releasing a puff of dry, cold air that smelled like old paper and copper. I stepped through the narrow frame and shined my light into the small, windowless room hidden behind my bedroom wall. Sitting on a sturdy oak table in the center of the space were 12 stacked metal bricks, tarnished with a dull yellow sheen that caught the beam of my lamp. I walked over, my hands trembling as I lifted one of the heavy rectangles. It weighed at least 25 pounds, stamped clearly on the top with an official 1932 mint mark. It was pure gold, a quiet fortune sitting untouched in the dark for nearly a century. Next to the stack lay a thick leather binder, its cover cracked and dry. Resting right on top of the binder was a piece of yellowed parchment paper written in sharp, hurried cursive ink. The note was brief, but the words burned into my mind the moment I read them. If you are reading this, the wall has fallen. The gold belongs to the people of this valley, stolen by Sheriff Thomas Vance during the Great Depression. Do not trust the badge. Do not trust his name. I sat down on an old wooden crate inside the vault, my heart racing as I opened the leather binder. Page after page contained bank ledgers, signed land deeds, and personal letters detailing a massive network of corruption that took place back in the 1930s. Sheriff Thomas Vance hadn't just enforced the law back then. He had run a ruthless extortion ring across the entire county. He seized family farms using forged tax liens, forced local business owners into paying protection money, and hid his illegal wealth right inside the double-walled foundation of this very house. As I flipped through the final pages of the ledger, my blood ran cold. The signatures at the bottom of the property transfers weren't just historical records. They bore the exact same family surname as our current city mayor, Arthur Vance. Mayor Arthur Vance was the most powerful man in Oak Ridge today, a public figure who owned half the commercial real estate downtown and ran his campaign on family legacy and local trust. The town named parks, libraries, and avenues after his family, completely unaware that their wealth was built on stolen lives. I closed the vault door and pushed a heavy dresser in front of the opening, unable to sleep a wink that night. Every creak of the old wooden floorboards sounded like footsteps, and every gust of wind against the window pane felt like a warning. By the next morning, I knew I couldn't just keep quiet. The sheer scale of what was documented in those ledgers proved that the Vance family's current real estate empire was directly funded by illicit money that belonged to families who were forced out of their homes decades ago. I carefully packed the leather binder and the original handwritten note into my leather messenger bag, leaving the gold securely locked inside the hidden vault. I needed professional legal advice from someone outside our corrupt local jurisdiction. I drove 2 towns over to consult with a retired federal prosecutor named Richard Hayes, a man known for his unyielding integrity and deep knowledge of state property laws. We sat in his study for 3 hours as he meticulously examined every single document, his face growing paler with every page he turned. Richard looked up at me, his eyes sharp and serious. He confirmed that while the physical gold belonged to the state treasury under old treasure trove regulations, the ledgers proved a paper trail of fraudulent land seizures that could dismantle Mayor Vance's current commercial holdings. The law dictated that if land was acquired through documented criminal fraud, the current heirs had no legal right to retain ownership, meaning dozens of local families who were driven into poverty in the 30s could finally claim restitution. 2 days later, Richard and I filed an official federal disclosure with the State Attorney General's office, bypassing local law enforcement entirely to prevent any tampering or advance warnings. The news broke on a rainy Thursday morning. Federal agents arrived at City Hall with a sweep of search warrants, seizing decades of financial records from Mayor Vance's private office, while news crews gathered outside the stone steps. The entire town of Oak Ridge was in shock as local news channels broadcasted live updates about the 90-year-old mystery uncovered inside a rundown $50,000 fixer-upper. Mayor Vance stepped down from his position within 48 hours as federal auditors began untangling the vast web of hidden assets and illegal land transfers tied to his family name. Workers from the State Historical Commission arrived at my property under armed escort to safely document and transport the gold bars to a secure federal vault, where a special trust fund was established for the descendants of the original victimized families. As part of the state's whistleblower protection and historic discovery laws, I was granted a legal finder's fee along with full immunity from any property dispute claims. The money from the reward was more than enough to completely restore the 100-year-old house from top to bottom, bringing back its original craftsman charm while reinforcing every wall and beam. Today, the master bedroom is finished, bright, and filled with morning sunlight. The hidden vault door remains right where I found it, behind the wood paneling, left intact as a silent reminder that no secret stays buried forever, and no stolen fortune can outrun the truth.